Hello, we are back. Instagram is trying to tell me so many things right now, and I don't really need it. You told me these things already. Come on in the room. Visit with us. My name is Kristian Roberts. I will be joined by my fabulous friend and co-host here in a minute. While we're here, would you all tell me where you're from, where you call home, how you're doing today? Shout out to all of you artists that continue to work and all you administrators and everyone that makes the big old opera machine work. So just tell us where you are, where you're from, what you're working to hear from you. My name is Kristian Roberts. I'm about to be joined by my fabulous friend and co-host, Quo Johnson. She should be here in a second. Oh, there she is. Hey, Quo.
Hi. Hello,
Oh, Tyler,
everyone.
Texas. Love Tyler, Texas. Okay. Like to
Tyler.
camp out there.
Yes. Tyler, Texas is our go-to stop. You have to stop in Tyler, Texas on the way when our
Oh,
family
I
goes
see
to
H-Town. Yeah, somebody from H-Town too. All right.
town. Stay down.
We got love for H-Town. We'll do. Shout out to our friends at HGO.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the space.
So we're gonna go ahead and dive in. But as we said before, please tell us where you're from, what you're doing, what you're working on, how are you doing, all of those types of things. We love to check in with everyone. We realize that just because you log on to Instagram doesn't necessarily mean all your troubles fade away, just as they don't fade away when you magically walk through the door of your office. But we also know that those joys come with you as well. So we want to celebrate those things as well. My name is Kristian Roberts. I'm here with my fabulous friend and co-host.
Codicia Johnson.
And we are back with a live episode of Taking the Stage with Kristian
And Quo. And of course, as we begin all of our episodes in this important work of connecting and in centering our humanity, we'll begin this episode with a land and people acknowledgement. So we do want to take the time right here, right now in this space to acknowledge that we are on stolen land here in Dallas. We are on the land of the Caddo, the Wichita, and the Comanche sovereign nations, as well as many tribal nations who cultivated the land since time immemorial, and nations who face horrible conditions, including genocide, including policy that allowed for forceful removal by any means necessary. Also, nations that are thriving, nations that are here, nations whose voices we will not silence, but we will center and uplift in the ways that we connect and heal the harm going forward. We also want to take the time to acknowledge that people were stolen from their homes and brought here to Dallas and forced into free and enslaved labor. From that free and enslaved labor, we have what we enjoy as Dallas. Dallas is not alone in this. The entire nation benefits from stolen land and stolen labor, which allowed the economy to boom the way that it did. And we want to acknowledge that as we continue to go through these things and continue to make those connections to life, that it's not so much in the past as we think it is. As my last name is Johnson, not because my ancestors' name is Johnson, same with Miss Roberts here, but because I'm a descendant of those enslaved people. But just as we carry these stories with us, we also carry the honor, the capability, the opportunity, and the responsibility to tell the truth, to heal the harm going forward, and to create new communities together. Thank you for joining us for this land and people acknowledgement.
And thank you for joining us on the show today. Shout out to the Dallas Opera staff. We see you, we love you, and all of those things. If you're on watches, then thank you for that. Also, shout out to our friend David Lomeli.
Hey, David.
Hope to see you soon, my friend. And today we're just going to dive sort of right into it. This is going to be a rather quick episode, but it was something that we felt like we needed to do, and there will likely be a part two, or at least a part 1A or, or something like that. 1B. I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying. The whole point does. We're talking today about creating an intentional space. And in opera, we're used to creating. We're used to creating settings. We're creating spaces. We build worlds, right? That's what we do. And one of the things that we, particularly in a creative field, one of the things I always say is that when you are walking into a space, particularly a space where we are creating things together, there are things that need to be put in place to do that. Artists, we have to have our we have to have the skill sets that we need to come there. We have to have all these different things that we bring to the table. But there's also responsibility to those who are in charge of building the space. So I want to dive into this with Quo, because one of the first things that we talked about, the intentionality, the intentionality.
Yes.
And Quo, let's dive into that just a little bit. So what does it mean to create an intentional space?
Right. So wordsmithing and getting into the context and the meaning of words. If you are inviting other people into your organization, if you're inviting audiences to come into your house, if you're asking to be invited into someone else's space, into communities, you have an intention, right? There's an intention there. What is your intention? Why are you hiring these people? Why are you asking people to come see your operas? Why are you asking artists to come and present stories? What is the intention? So when we are mindful of our intention, even if it's unconscious, when we are mindful of our intention and we can name our intention, we can better understand what impact looks like and whether or not our impact and our intentions are aligned. And if they're misaligned, we now have that accountability piece, right? I have to look at you and say, this is what I'm trying to do. And then if you tell me that's not what's happening, then I have a responsibility. I have an obligation. I have the honor, right? To then say, oh, okay, let me use all of my creative processes. Let me use my full humanity to find the solution. We are seeing in the opera field in many different ways that people have not voiced their true intentions for the spaces that they are creating. And because of that, things are falling apart. Because y'all thought people were playing in so many ways. Because of that, things are falling apart. So if you are not being intentional about what you were trying to do, because being intentional about what you're trying to do also, again, makes you accountable for making sure you get there. But then it also shares and it communicates with others, hey, here's what I'm trying to do. So those who are also trying to achieve similar goals or trying to do similar things can then find you, right? And then can work together to build community. So when I say creating an intentional space, it is making sure, one, that everybody's on this big thing about diversity and inclusion, and yeah, but those are byproducts of an equitable space. So when I say create an intentional space, equity first and foremost, look at what is and what is not fair.
We have said this. I'm sorry, Chloe, because I got to get on this.
No,
We have
said I just started going. You got
it. Over and over again. So many people want to create the visual representation rather than creating the real representation of what's really going on underneath the surface. It is not okay to just start grabbing people. Okay, let me get some black people and some Asian people and we get some gay people over here, and then not creating a pretty picture. Okay, Quo calls it the Pokemon. You're trying to catch them all, and then you've done nothing to create a space where all of those different folks and your diversity folks, your diverse folks, can thrive. I liken it to having a house, inviting people over and saying, hey, come to my house. And then you hand them a broom when you walk through the door and say, clean up my house.
Or you don't even give them a broom. You say, I need you to go make a broom, and then I need you to go clean this up. And while you're doing it, be able to report on it so that we can keep telling people how great our house is.
Yes, we need you to qualify and quantify how this is working. And that is not fair. And I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's I don't care what kind of job it is. I don't care if it's on the stage. I don't care if it's in offices. I don't care if it's in a big gigantic corporate office. I don't care where it is. This is what's happening. And so when you see these sort of controversies and this is what we talk about, creating systemic change. You haven't even got the structure of the house together. You have not cleaned up your house in order to be so people can come in. If you don't have the structure and the bones of your house together, how on earth are you going to invite people in and say, can you help me decorate?
And then I love this as well, because the analogy that you give of you have to, when you're inviting somebody to assist with your home, right? And when you want to create a home together, ultimately we want to get to transformation to where we are creating things together. Hey, Debbie, where we are creating things together, right? But before that, you have to acknowledge the intent of, I need somebody in this house. I need somebody else in this space with me, which means that the space is not complete, which means that there is work to be done. So we cannot simultaneously acknowledge that something needs to change, there's work that needs to be done, and then say that we don't have any problems.
We're all friends here. We all love each other here. I know some of you have heard that, so we don't talk about it today because we don't have a lot of time today. So we're going to talk about
No, we can go. We can go.
This is the reason, and this is the reason why we bring this up, y'all. This is coming out of the fact that we know this happens. Okay, we know this happens, and we know this happens across entire industry. All industries. We have heard so many complaints. I'm talking BIPOC folks, women, LGBTQ, of people that have gone and you brought people in to tokenize them. But you didn't realize at the time. You were so busy trying to be diverse that when they got there, you didn't have the structure built ready. Now, I understand that this is new for everybody. But you have to understand that we're at a point right now where the harm is dangerous. It's not good. It's particularly in a field that's creative like ours. We create entire worlds. There is no reason why this should be this difficult. And I know I'm coming at it strong today, but the reason why is we have the tools as creative people to create worlds. So even though we're trying to create a world we have never seen, we still have the tools to do it. The issue is that you don't want to adapt those tools or exchange those tools for other tools that don't work or maybe don't look like the tools that you are accustomed to using. This is the issue right now. And so when we say create a space, you have to create a space where community can really truly take place, where creativity can take place. Well, you have some steps. We talk about the steps for creating a space, and I will default to you because you are the equity specialist. Talk about steps for creating a space.
I will. And so as we look at creating a space, it's definitely a matter of, again, setting your intention at the beginning. When you're bringing people together, if you're really bringing the people together just so you can get a grant, say that. Just say it and let people respond. Say it and then see what happens, right? But if you want to do more than that, be intentional about what you're doing. And it's not necessary to meet everything at once, right? You will not achieve everything at one time, but start with being intentional and being accountable about why you are creating a space, why we are doing this equity work, because it's necessary. And then in your intentions, make sure you start with equity. Start with learning what has happened. Start with learning what is fair. Equal is not fair. Equal can never be fair in this nation because we are never on equal footing. So we have different expectations in what is happening because we have been provided with different resources and different opportunities to do different things. So don't come at it from what is equal, come at it from what is fair, what is equitable. And then start to make sure that you're processing that information as you continue to be intentional. Then start to be intentional about how you are actually welcoming diversity into the space. And I don't want to just say welcoming, right? When we get to a space of belonging, it's a matter of co-creation. Not you should feel good coming in here. It is, this is yours too, let's go. It is, this is not just my house anymore, right? Which is a concept we don't really think about because it's like, this is my house. I invited you. But this is our home. This is our space. What would you like to do here? What would you like to do together? And then as we continue to look at creating an intentional space, know that accountability is so big and such a big part of this because you have to make sure that your intentions and your impact align. They will not always align. They cannot. If they could, we wouldn't need to be doing this. They cannot always align, and that is completely okay. This is a question of what are you doing to make sure you adjust it? This is not a matter of being perfect. I said this years ago at the opera conference. This is not a matter of being perfect. This is how are you going to respond when you realize that you made a misstep? Because you will. That's a part of learning. This is a part of expanding. If you were right all the time, we wouldn't need to do this. This also goes to my folks of color, to my LGBTQ plus community, to the different age groups that we have, to our veterans, our mixed abilities, those who are often facing greater barriers, no matter who you are. There comes a point where you have to walk within your own understanding of you owning the space. This is where gathering and community comes into play. It is not necessary for us any longer to be separated. A lot of this happens and this system can continue because we're separated. We're not talking to each other because we get so worn down and we have all these projects and all these things going on, all this stuff that we have to prove just to affirm our humanity. Your humanity is affirmed. Mm-hmm. In this space, your humanity is affirmed.
The account is something that you said about accountability, because I've also noticed people are so afraid to make a mistake and admit a mistake. And I can understand that because, you get called out these days. I mean, people are all freaking out about cancel culture. And I would ask, where did that come from? You mean consequence culture? Because after a while, when things are wrong, you can't expect that not to be held accountable. At some point, that's going to happen in one way or the other, right? You have to be accountable and committed. You have to be able to say, you know what? We didn't do right there. Here's how we're going to correct moving forward. And here's who we're going to listen to in order to be able to do that. That is how you affect change. Mm-hmm. The issue is nobody wants to say, I messed that up. And I understand that. But that perfectionism, we talked to y'all about that 2 weeks ago. You got to lay that aside. Okay. In order to create a space, you have to create a space where people can come in and be themselves and create and make mistakes and then be able to have a path to redemption to fix them. So let's talk about that part. Well, when we talk about accountability and people being committed, there also has to be being committed to paths of redemption.
Right. Paths of redemption. And in equity work, we call it restoration, right? Restorative practices. What can we do to, and even if it wasn't there, so it's not always restorative and it's not always reform, especially when we're looking at racial equity, which is the basis of a lot of equity work, and it should be, how are you transforming the space to approach things differently? There are punitive responses, right? But accountability does not always mean punishment. Another Gary Hawkins quote, right? Sherry Hawkins. Accountability does not always
what people think. It's always associated with, I'm going to get punished. I'm going to get beat up. I'm going to get thrashed in the media. I'm going to get this. I'm going to get that. All these types of things. And I think that's where the fear comes in. And that's why I would say, be courageous. Be courageous in your accountability. Be courageous in your commitment. Be courageous in speaking out when something isn't right and in trying to enact change. We tell you all the time to be bold. And this is the time for it. It's past time.
And I would say be bold, right? Be courageous and then be compassionate as well. That does not mean that you are absolved of all of the harm, but know that harm is there. It's going to be created. It's a matter of, again, how do we restore? How do we transform the space? Because it has to happen. But that starts with setting an intentional space. That starts with saying, this is what we're trying to achieve in this space. And then it starts to move you into a space of being able to listen so that you can learn what is necessary. Again, we're in this equity work and needing to do equity because it is necessary. You can't pretend like there's nothing to fix. You can't say, hey, can you come over here? I need assistance with this. Or, hey, I know we need to change these things. And then say, no, we don't. We don't need to change anything. That does not work. And it is very natural.
We didn't bring you here for that. Hey, I want you to come do this. Oh, we didn't want you to do that. Why did you bring somebody? Why did you hire the consultant? Why did you hire the physician if you didn't want them to do the job that you said you wanted them to do?
Yes. And so I will also say to my people who are being targeted in a lot of ways, no matter your position or your identity, to meet this desire, right? There's a desire of evidence of results, not evidence of the work being done. There's a desire to see results, not a desire to see the work being done or the learning that is happening. So we're skipping over this process, which prevents people from actually being able to progress and to mature in this work, right? It's just like skipping and memorizing a piece, but not really learning the technique necessary so you can do more difficult pieces. So that's all you know how to play. That's all you know how to sing. And that's it. You got that, and that's perfect. We want to avoid that approach of skipping the process so that we can actually make sure that we mature through this work. So as we set our intentionality and as we set the space and as we are mindful of who we're asking to join us in this space and for whom this space is being built, it also requires that we be accountable, that we be honest, that we gather. I do want to encourage everybody to gather, especially those of us who are being targeted in different ways for different reasons. Gather. Gather so that you can share space. Gather so that you don't have to explain every single thing. Gather just so that you know what it is like. In particular, the Black administrators of opera will be gathering next week for the first time. And I'm already hyped about the space. I see Andrea Joy in the chat. Hey, hey, Andrea. And just the opportunity, not just to be affirmed in your humanity, because again, be affirmed in your humanity, but to be affirmed in your experience, so that there is not such a struggle to find your space and your place in an organization or in a space that is unintentional about what they're doing. You then get to drive the intention of the space. You get to command the space and what is happening and what needs to happen. There's a fortification, there's strength that comes with gathering and being in community with one another. So I do encourage everybody, be in community as you name those intentional spaces. I guess I just moved into positive notes, huh?
Yes, there it is. You did. Like it was so smooth. I just can't let you go. Go ahead.
As we look at creating intentional spaces, it takes the courage and the compassion to say, hey, this is really what I'm trying to achieve. And you have to be bold about that, knowing that you may not get it immediately. Some of us avoid saying, this is what I want to do, because sometimes we don't want to jinx it, but sometimes we don't want to face the fact that we're going to fail at it the first time. You should fail the first time.
Or that it's not going to look as pretty as you thought it was, or anything like that. And I will also say, that's something we should be used to in the field, given our skills. The first time we go through an aria is not perfect. You know, the first time we have orchestra readings for a reason, because we know we need to read through the thing and then solidify it. You know what I mean? But first we have to work our way. It's the reason why we have sight reading. We learn sight reading, all these different things. That is the reason why we have these tools to do it, knowing that it's not going to be perfect the very first time that we do it. And this is the very first time that this industry has taken a hard look at itself and are really trying to be about the art that we say we want to create and the space we want to create in order to make that art. So I say all that to say, we are creators. We are artists. We are arts administrators. We are a creative people. We just are. It's what we do. We build worlds out of. We turn, some cardboard and sticks and everything else, and we turn them into whole sets and all kinds of stuff. And to me, we should be able to take that know-how and that skill and move boldly into this kind of work. Right? Because it hit me the other day. We have so many folks in schools across the nation, universities, conservatories, who want to go into this art form. You have arts administrators programs popping up everywhere, certification. We have so many people who want to go into this art, and yet we still find ourselves having some of the same problems that the arts have had. This art has had for 30 or 40 years, longer than that. But really, right now. Now, why? And so I would ask us, don't be afraid of the new tools.
Very much. And this is relevant for everyone. So this is something I want a tool, right, to provide everyone. When you go into a space, state your intentions. Even if that is in your head, right? If it's for you and you're practicing, you go into the space, say what you want to do in that space.
Yep.
Because it will allow you to question whether or not that really is a priority in that space. I want to get this right. I want to perform well. I want to perform beautifully. Those are different things. When we go into meetings, state the intention of the meeting, because then it will open the space for people to actually question whether or not that should be the priority. We want to get more diverse board members. Okay, cool. Do we want to get more diverse board members, or do we want to actually create a space that is of co-creation so that people know and people automatically come here? With effort, right? It's not just going to happen, but do we want to shift the space and the actual culture of the organization, or do we just want to get more people in here? Those are two different things. One can lead to the other. One is not really possible without the other, right? So if we look at this work, not consistently, as we look at this work, it is a matter of state your intention. You go into a meeting, state your intention, and then work to create those spaces. and then work to actually prioritize what is most meaningful. Because I promise, like we say so many times, it really, really is contagious. It really is contagious once you get into a space of co-creation. This is why we love this art form so much, because we do get to produce and create so many things together. You can do the same in your offices, in your practice rooms, in your classrooms, right? In your
Your
boardrooms.
boardrooms.
Read it. Read it. You can do the same. It truly is a matter of how are you going to be courageous? How are you going to be compassionate? And how are you going to take ownership in creating an intentional space? You can do it, right? We can do it. I promise. I believe in you. You can do it. And we can do it together, right? You don't have to do it alone. That's what we say so often and so many times. You don't have to do it alone. We have to be in community with each other. We have to gather. And then we have to continue to create those spaces together. So those are my positive notes for today's episode.
Thank you, Cole, for your positive notes. We're going to wrap up, folks, but we hope you got something out of this. If you have questions, you can always send Dallas Opera. You just hit a DM, they'll get it to us. You can also reach us on our own Instagram page. Is not an issue. Mine is KS Roberts 254. Quo's is here. Quo, you want to give me your handle?
Yeah, just Quo Johnson. That's it. Drinks, I see your question. Happy to answer that. Yeah. Good. We'll answer. We're happy to answer that. So I'll message you.
Cool. All right, folks. Thank you all so much for joining us. We're gonna wrap, but please, folks, be courageous, be bold, continue to be creative, continue to be practice being unafraid of things that are new or things that are new concepts. Practice being unafraid of being wrong, but also practice being very afraid of not getting it right and not learning the second time around, right? We're not asking for perfection, but we are asking for a commitment, right? A commitment to creating intentional spaces. So thank you all very much. Have a great rest of your day. Peace out, Quo.
All right.
We'll see y'all in a couple of weeks.
Bye, everyone.